All right. Hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about one of my very, very favorite things to ever talk about ever, which is how to become your own safe place. Because this is something that I feel like is incredibly foundational in being able to create a life for ourselves that feels good. Like, really, at the end of the day, this is what becoming your own safe place is all about. It's learning how to make it so that your own inner world and your own relationship with yourself is one founded on safety and kindness and compassion rather than continual self-judgment and blame and shame and guilt and feeling like we're not good enough and feeling like we're not doing what we should be doing and all of these things that so many of us walk around with day in and day out, just like never feeling enough and never feeling good enough. And this process of becoming somebody that you can actually be safe with is the foundation for what I believe to be the true healing path and the true enlightenment path, the true awakening path, whatever kind of path you feel like you're on. When we can be on our own side, when we can be compassionate with ourselves, when we can step out of assuming that there's something wrong with us, assuming that the way that we feel is wrong, assuming that when we are in pain, this means we need to fix ourselves. When we can shift out of that and we can shift into a space of giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt, of feeling like there's a good reason why we feel how we feel, of feeling like we have the emotions we have for a reason, of feeling like we have the patterns that we have for a reason, we are going to be able to actually understand ourselves. Okay? And this is the big key that shifts everything, right? When we shift out of, I am just doing whatever I'm doing, or I'm feeling how I'm feeling, or I'm responding how I'm responding because I'm broken, because there's something wrong with me, because I'm failing, because I'm not good enough. When we can shift out of that and into seeing that we always have a reason for why we feel how we feel. We always have a reason for why we are doing what we are doing. We always have a reason for the patterns, for the thought patterns, for the beliefs, for the whatever it is. And when we can start to see that, when we can start to see the actual reason for why we are the way we are, why we feel the way we feel, why we're acting the way that we're acting, that is when we can start to actually get our needs met. That is when we can start to say, okay, this isn't just me making bad choices in my adulthood because I decided to make bad choices. This isn't just me feeling this way for no reason because I'm just immature or because I'm just seeing it wrong or because whatever it is. You see what I'm saying? We can actually start to understand the cause of our patterns, the cause of our feelings, the cause of all of the things we think are wrong with us. And when we can understand the cause, we can support ourselves. You see what I'm saying? We can get to a place where we can say, oh, okay, I'm not broken. I'm not shameful. I'm not trying to hurt myself for no reason. I'm not trying to hurt other people for no reason. There's not something wrong with me. Rather, I'm reacting to something in my environment that actually isn't good. It's not my reaction that's the problem. It's the environment that needs to change. I am doing these patterns for a reason. This is how I learned to get love, to be safe, to get my needs met. And even though there may be negative consequences to these actions, even though my patterns may not be ideal, it's not because I'm broken. It's not because there's something wrong with me. This is the best I know to do to be safe. And so when we can start to understand these things, this is how we shift out of continually trying to fix ourselves when we're not broken. We're doing what we're doing for a good reason. We're responding how we're responding for a good reason. We have the patterns that we have for a good reason. And we are never going to change them. We are never going to feel better. We are never going to get to a healthier place until we understand why, and until we can actually then get the need met, change the thing that needs to be changed, or support ourselves in developing new habits, you see what I'm saying, to get our needs met, that are less destructive and more constructive over time. When we can be our own safe place, that is when we are going to be able to understand all of these other things, which then lead to true and real solutions for how we can shift our lives to feel better. Because so long as we are shaming ourselves, blaming ourselves, guilting ourselves, believing that there is something wrong with us, so long as that is our foundation, we are never going to understand what's really going on. We are always going to be in a state of delusion. That is why I say the self-love path is not just a path of, liking yourself more. It's an awakening path. It's a spiritual path. It's a healing path. It's a growth path. It's the path because it helps us to become aware of real reality. It takes us out of the delusion that we are just doing what we're doing for no reason, that we're feeling what we're feeling for no reason, or that we're broken and we need to fix ourselves, which just continues to make us act in ways and do things and pursue solutions that never shift the needle, that never actually change our lives, that never actually make us feel better, because they don't get at what's actually happening. At best, they treat symptoms. They treat symptoms for a little while. They stimulate us, they excite us, they can help us change our habits for a short period of time, whatever it is. It's superficial, but we always end up right where we started because we're not getting at the root of things. We're not seeing reality for how it is. And therefore, everything we try to do to try to fix or change reality doesn't work because we're not seeing the cause. We're treating rotten fruit and we're not looking at the roots. Do you see what I'm saying? Becoming your own safe place is the foundation for the awakening and the awareness and the actual understanding, which leads to the solutions and the steps that we need to take to change our lives. When we can be our own safe place, that is when we are going to have access to the information that we need. When we are stuck in judgment and in shame and in blame and in guilt, we are always going to be in a state where we do not see reality for how it is. Okay? This is why in my mystery school, I titled the program where we go into dissecting this, why we have all of our shame, blame, and guilt, into our childhood stuff, into our getting mad at caregivers and all of this work. I titled that course, The Process of Awakening to Reality. And I titled it that for a reason. Because that's literally what it is. It's the process of awakening to the reality that there has never been anything wrong with you. That you are not just making bad choices. that you are not just hurting yourself or hurting others because you're broken or bad or shameful. And I don't even like the term maladaptive coping mechanisms and all of these things that the world has come up with. Because that still feels to me, and if it doesn't feel that way to you, that's fine. Shame me. And like there's something wrong with you, maladaptive. Well, no. You have learned to adapt, to do what you do, to get your needs met and to keep yourself safe for a reason. It was the best you knew to do based on the information that you had at the time. And again, so many of us are living these lives where we come into our adulthood and we genuinely feel and think that we came into adulthood with a full toolbox of awareness and tools and skills and capacity, and the ability to just live a perfectly aligned, perfectly healthy, perfectly balanced life, and then just chose to fuck it up. Like, that's how most of us are walking around. Like, I'm just messing it up. I'm just making bad choices. I just am choosing not to do the right thing. And we don't see that it's like, no, you weren't supported in your childhood. You weren't ever given these tools. You were traumatized. You had adverse experiences that you haven't healed from. You had to adapt to an unideal environment using childhood reasoning and childhood logic and childhood skill, which of course, I hope we can all understand, isn't ideal, isn't adult. And those became our patterns and our programs because that's how our bodies work. And now we're playing them out in our adulthoods in an adult way, thinking, why can't I just change? Why can't I just do things? Because we're programmed, because it's our nervous system, because this is what we learned deep early on in our childhoods. And it became our modus operandi. And changing those habits is hard. And it requires a lot of self-awareness. And it requires a lot of compassion. And it requires a lot of patience and steps. And again, one of the very first steps that I am going to harp on for the rest of my life until I die is self-compassion and being on your own side and making space for yourself. Because again, it's in that state of being able to be on our own side, of being able to be kind to ourselves, of being able to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, that we are going to discover why we are doing what we're doing, why we are feeling how we're feeling, why we have the habits that we have. It is only in that safe place of compassionate witnessing that we are going to be able to see the things we need to see in order to discover the things we need to discover so that we can change in the ways we need to change. That is why becoming your own safe place is so important. Because when we feel attacked, when we feel shamed, when we feel like we're being told that we're not good enough, that we're broken, that we're bad, that we're wrong, that we're shameful, we are not able to expand into truth. When we feel that judgment, that criticism, that you are not good enough, your pain is your fault, that you are just doing this and you should be different, and you have no reason to feel how you're feeling, and you shouldn't be feeling this way, and you shouldn't be acting this way, and you're broken, and you're messed up, and you're shitty. When we feel that, we go into fear. That fear state shuts down our critical, logical thinking. It shuts down our curiosity. It shuts down our capacity to see what we don't usually see, to understand what we don't usually understand. And it forces us into a state where we just want to do what we've always done, where we see things the way we've always seen them, where we are not capable of true critical thought. We think we are. We think we're thinking critically, as in actually questioning things. But really, we're just thinking the same stuff over and over and over again. We're not able to expand out of what we have always thought and what we have always done, because that's what the fear state does. When we are in that state of fear, fear tells us, do what you've always done. See it how you've always seen it. Because again, as we were evolving, there is literal science behind this. Okay, this is not just some spiritual woo-woo thing. This is how our brains function. In our evolutionary past, when we were in a state of fear, most of the time, that was because our lives were literally at risk in that moment. We were in an emergency survival situation. A lion was coming to eat us. There was a fire. Something was happening in the immediate environment that was threatening our survival. And the best way to survive a physical, immediate threat is not to expand out and take in all this information and think of the complexity of things and come up with a whole new way of doing things, right? In an emergency situation, this is why in emergency training, we get drilled to program into your body, this is how you respond when there's a fire. This is how you respond when someone's not breathing. This is how you respond. You repeat the same thing over and over and over again as an instinct. So when this happens, you can respond, because that is the best way to save ourselves when we are in a state of emergency. Whatever you did last time that worked, do that again. Whatever you did last time you didn't die, do that again. That's how our brains and our bodies are programmed to function when we're in a state of fear. Okay? So now, in our modern world, most of us experience fear when we experience being rejected, when we experience being unloved, when we experience feeling like we're being kicked out of the group, not connected, not having safety in community. Do you see what I'm saying here? Most of us are not experiencing fear in the context of a life or death situation. Most of us experience fear within the context of social interaction, of feeling like we are being abandoned, disapproved of, like we're going to be alone forever, we're going to be unloved, we're going to be isolated, we're going to be alone. That's where most of us experience fear in our current modern world. And we have to remember that this fear of being alone, of not being loved, of being rejected, has deep nervous system roots for all of us. Because in our childhoods, in that temporary state of codependency, in order to survive, we needed to be loved. Do you understand? We were children, and in our early developmental phases, we could not provide for ourselves. We could not meet our own needs. We could not understand our own needs. We could not get ourselves out of pain when we were in pain. We could not provide for ourselves. And if we had to learn to do those things at a period of time before we were actually physically, mentally, emotionally ready to do that, that was an existential crisis to us. Okay? This cannot be understated. If we did not have secure connections to our caregivers growing up, where we could express our emotions and be loved and supported, where we could be sick and be loved and supported, where we could have tantrums and be shown how to emotionally regulate, where we could say, no, that doesn't feel good for me, and have our caregivers actually be able to figure out a way of helping us through those things. If we didn't have that, if we felt love going away, we would then go into a state of oh my God, I'm going to die. That's how the childhood self responded to that. Because caregivers are our source of everything. I cannot meet my own needs. I cannot understand myself. I don't understand this whole big world. If caregivers are abandoning me, rejecting me, shaming me, harming me, abusing me, telling me that I'm not allowed to feel this way, shunning me when I feel certain ways, all of these things, that's an existential threat. That puts us into a state of fear. I'm not going to be okay. Being rejected, being abandoned, being shamed, being hurt, being harmed. I am not safe. And then the only tool that our childhood self had at the time was to say, okay, what did I just do wrong? What did I just do wrong? How did I cause that? What in my behavior was the cause, the reason why my caregivers abandoned me, abused me, shamed me, didn't give me what I need, didn't take my pain away? Whether our caregivers were capable of taking our pain away or not, whether their abandonment had anything to do with us or not, it doesn't matter, because that's how we experienced it. In our bodies and in our nervous systems, we experienced, I am being rejected, I am being abandoned, I am being hurt, harmed by these people that I am completely dependent upon. What did I just do wrong? And I am not okay. I am not okay. I am not going to be okay. This is not okay. Existential threat. Which then put us into that state of fear. Yes? And our nervous systems got deeply programmed. That shame, rejection, guilt, not being loved, not being seen, not being heard, equals I'm not going to be okay. So now when we experience that in our adult lives, that's what kicks in our nervous systems. When we feel shamed, blamed, guilted, when we have pain we don't know how to get rid of, when we do things that got us rejected in our childhoods, when we experience people feeling like they're not loving us or not supporting us or like we're going to be alone forever, that triggers that deep sense of fear in us, which then triggers us into our coping mechanisms, the way we sabotage ourselves, the way we numb ourselves, the way we try to fix ourselves, and all of this stuff. And that shame, blame, and guilt, that inner critic, flares up to tell us all the things that we're doing wrong in an attempt to fix us, thinking that if I fix you, caregivers are going to change their mind, they're going to love you, and then you're going to be safe. So that is why we hate ourselves. Does this make sense? That's why the inner critic is there. That is why we are not our own safe place. Because in childhood, being our own safe place wasn't helpful. In childhood, loving yourself when your caregivers didn't love you wasn't helpful. because you needed them. You couldn't do it for you. And if the only thing you had control over was yourself, which is how you perceived it as a child, the thing you needed to fix about you, anytime you felt like you were not okay, was you. The thing you felt you needed to fix about the situation, when you felt like you were being abandoned, shamed, blamed, guilted, not loved, not supported, you're in pain, they're not fixing it, it was, what am I doing wrong? That's what the inner critic is doing. It's trying to save you from abandonment, which is the ultimate fear in our nervous systems. If I'm not loved, if I'm not cared for, I'm not going to be safe. The inner critic is saying, okay, if you're feeling alone, abandoned, shamed, blamed, if you're doing the things that got you those things, I'm going to snap. I'm going to get on top of you. I'm going to look for all the things that are wrong with you in an attempt to try to fix you. Because the inner critic, that inner child, truly believes that if you fix yourself, caregivers are going to change their mind, and then you will have perfect safety. That's, again, why we are not our own safe place. Does this make sense? Okay, so needs met, self-express is a quote from you that stays and uplifts me. Yes. Right? We are trying to meet our needs. We are trying to keep ourselves safe, and that is the bottom line of why we are doing everything. So now, in our adulthoods, we are no longer dependent upon caregivers the way we used to be. Reality is different now. This is the thing that most of us have never been able to grow into. When we didn't have a secure connection, when we didn't have age-appropriate support in learning how to become independent in healthy ways. If we had to become independent and taking care of ourselves because our caregivers couldn't do it or didn't do it way too early, right? If we were the people that everyone said, you're an old soul and you're such a mature child and you're like, wow, look at how well behaved you are and you're not like the other kids running around, you're so great. A lot of the time, that wasn't because we were mature. It was because we had to be that, right? We weren't safe to be children. And that then leads to an adulthood where we probably have chronic anxiety, where we feel like the other shoe is going to drop all the time, where we constantly feel like we're failing, where we're people pleasers, like really bad people pleasers. And then we walk around, and a lot of the time too, we're very capable people, and we are very good at doing a lot of things, but we feel very incapable. We feel like we're going to fail all the time. We feel like the other shoe is going to drop all the time. Or we did grow up like stunted, and we have we operate from anxiety, we operate very maybe depressed, and we feel very isolated, and we feel alone, and we feel like we can't do anything, and we feel like we have a very low level of being able to problem solve for ourselves. We have very low faith in ourselves. We're probably socially awkward, like all of these things usually come as a result of not having had a secure connection, right? If we weren't given the secure connection we needed to help us learn how to regulate our emotions, to help us learn how to problem solve, to help us learn how to identify our needs and get them met at age-appropriate times, we were going to become adults with lots of coping mechanisms, lots of anxiety, lots of fear, and heavy, heavy, heavy inner critic. Do you see? This all makes sense? And that inner critic, that thing, that part of you that is constantly telling you how there's something wrong with you, how you feel isn't legitimate, how you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, how you're failing. And that inner critic where you have that, that one part of yourself, the scapegoat part, that whenever you're feeling scared, alone, abandoned, isolated, or an emotion you don't know how to fix, or an emotion you don't know how to feel, you blame it on that, right? If I could just fix this about myself. We all have that part, that personality trait that is the thing that if we could just fix it, we would be so much better. The body, the job, the whatever. And then we all have our coping mechanisms, our ways that we numb ourselves, our ways that we stimulate ourselves, that we think if I could get rid of the coping mechanism, my life would be perfect. And the only reason my life sucks is because of my coping mechanism, instead of realizing that the coping mechanism is how we're avoiding emotions we don't know how to feel. It's how we're soothing ourselves. It's how we're getting our needs met in the only ways we know how to get our needs met. And if we were to actually get rid of the coping mechanism, we would feel astronomically worse. We think we need to fix ourselves and get rid of these bad things and get rid of these bad parts, when in reality, what we actually need is to be loved in the places we weren't loved, to be validated in the places we were not validated, to be supported in the places we were not supported, to be given the things that we needed that we didn't get, and to have the things that are currently hurting us removed from our environment so we can feel better. That's what we really need. We don't need to be fixed because we're not broken. We're responding. So this is why becoming your own safe place is the key to everything. Because when you can be on your own side, you no longer trigger that fear response that puts you in a state where you're just going to do what you've always done, right? What I just explained. When we are in that state of fear, we are just going to do what we've always done. We are going to see everything the way we've always seen it. We are not going to be able to take in new, more complex information. We are not going to be able to expand into curiosity. We are not going to be able to empathize with ourselves, which is all the things we need to do in order to figure out why we're feeling how we're feeling, why we're behaving how we're behaving, why we're doing what we're doing. And instead, again, we're just going to scapegoat onto that part of ourselves we think we need to fix, that we've been merry-go-rounding for years and years and years. We're going to go look to the wellness, self-help, self-improvement, spirituality world, and they're going to be like, yep, you just need to fix this. You just need to change this. Get on your morning routine, get your supplements, buy the new diet, whatever it is, and it'll fix you. And then you'll be liberated from your bad choices. But that's never what it is. Okay? So how do we do this? How do we actually become our own safe place? This is hard. Okay? I just want to put that out there. First thing, if there was an easy way to shift out of the constant shame, blame, guilt, I am broken, bad, wrong, horrible, I think I would have found it by now. I've been working on this for a long time. If there was an easy way, if there was a quick fix, I would have it and I would give it to you, okay? Unfortunately, I don't think it exists. And also, there is no one way for all of us. Becoming our own safe place, there isn't a single technique that we're all going to resonate with or that we all need in order to build that inner self-love, right? That's why, again, my mystery school is 5 years long. That's why I do one-on-one sessions, because that's why I have a gabillion videos, because this is a complex thing. We are all unique individuals with unique pasts and unique needs and unique places where learning to abandon ourselves took place. So there are different techniques and tools that are going to work for different people that don't work for others. So I really want you to understand that you learning to develop your own inner safety is your path, and it's going to be unique to you. And that if one technique or one thing or one tool doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean it's hopeless for you. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That doesn't mean you're broken and it can never happen. It might just mean you need something different. Okay? This path is going to look different for all of us. Becoming our own safe place looks different for all of us. So I'm going to give a plethora of things to try. And I want you to give all of them a try. And I want you to give them a try over the long term. Because again, this is going to be a process. Like, I've been working on this for a very long time. And there are still days where I get caught in shame and then coping mechanisms and shitting all over myself. And I'm like, whoa. It happens. Okay? But the more we practice becoming our own safe place, the more second nature it becomes, the easier it becomes, the more accessible it becomes. All right? So number one thing that I want to give is learning to develop the witness self. And we actually talked about this in the last video. What I really like to offer people when they're first learning to be on their own side is to see that there is a part of you that is listening to your inner critic. To see that there is a part of you that is experiencing your emotions, that is experiencing your physical sensations, that is listening to your thoughts. But that is not these things. Learning to develop our awareness of our witness self is foundational to becoming our own safe place. Okay? So a lot of us, when we go inside and we go to be our own safe place, it feels like either there's no one in there or there's only the inner critic. There's only that mean voice telling us how horrible we are or how incapable we are and how we can't do it and how we're not going to be okay and we're not going to be safe and we're not going to be loved and everyone hates us and we're failing at everything. When we go inside, it either feels like nothing or it feels like criticism. And I want you to know that that's normal. You're not alone in that. A lot of people have that experience. So the first thing I want you to start to practice is that you are hearing that voice. You are hearing those thoughts. There's a part of you that is experiencing your experience that isn't that inner critic voice. And then coupled with that is I really encourage you to start to hear that inner critic voice, as well as that I'm failing at everything, I'm not capable, I can't do this, as the inner child. That is not who you are. And that inner critic is not an adult voice that is seeing reality for how it actually is. The inner critic is the child part of you. Okay? The inner critic is the child part of you that just so badly wants to be loved that it is willing to do whatever it feels it needs to do to change you, to fix you, to heal you, to make you different. So that what it perceived your caregivers wanted from you will be what you can do and be what you can be, so that they will give you perfect safety in life. We need to start to view the inner critic and that inner helpless child as just a scared part of us that truly believes that if I'm not loved, I'm not going to be okay. That's what's happening, right? That awareness alone can be something that helps move the needle towards being kind to ourselves. So starting to connect with the fact that there is a bigger, more expanded part of you that can witness that inner critic, that can witness your emotions, that can witness your feelings, but doesn't get swallowed up by them. So this is like huge work that we do in the mystery school, and also this is the foundation of what I work on with a lot of my clients. So again, some of us are going to be able to do this on our own. Some of us are going to be able to develop this inner witness through meditations, or even just listening to like talks like this, or you can do it on your own, right? Like you can start to be like, yes, okay, there's a witness self. There's a higher part of me. There's a more adult part of me, and that I can identify with, that I can then use as a foundation to help me first just witness these other parts of myself, and then eventually learn to love and support and get curious about these other parts of myself. Some of us are going to be able to do that on our own. Others of us are going to need someone to help us. This is why I say there is no one way. Some of us are going to need a coach or a therapist or a loving friend or a meditation teacher or someone else to be there to help us, to support us in identifying with that witness self, so that we don't get swallowed up by our emotions, so that we don't get swallowed up by the inner child that freaks out and takes over, either through, right, I'm feeling scared and I'm never going to be okay, and catastrophizing and running down rabbit holes of fear, and then feeling like we totally lose it and we're just in what if land and we're just terrified and it feels like the whole world is going to crash down around us and we think we're critically thinking but really we're not. Or, right, we're just in, okay, no, I need to fix this, I need to change this is horrible about me, this is what's bad with me, shame, 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 guilt, 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 and it just seems really, really real. If we're not able to take a step back from that and develop that part of ourselves that can witness those stories and start to create space between ourselves and those stories, that's when I always say, get help. You don't have to do this by yourself, right? There's the mystery school, there's coaching with me, there's coaching with therapists, there's other spiritual guides, there's working with friends sometimes. Like there are so many resources that sometimes we need that co-regulation first. Okay, so again, there is no shame in not being able to develop the witness self by yourself. If this is something that you really struggle with, and it feels like there's no way where you can step outside of that fear or outside of the stories, and it just feels like that's all of who you are, get some support. Okay? Because the truth is, we first need to be able to witness these parts as just parts. Okay? Even what you've offered for free has changed my life so much. Well, that's so good. That's why I do this. That's the entire point of this. I hope that is true, right? Thank you. Because I truly believe this information should be accessible to everybody. Right? It should be accessible to everybody. And I try to do my best to give it as much as I can. So we develop first the witness. And then when we start to develop that witness self, that part of ourselves that can say, okay, this is my inner child freaking out. My inner critic is really just my inner child. When we can start to develop that part of ourselves that can just watch ourselves be sad and not get swallowed up by the sadness, but we can just say, oh, okay, I'm really sad and it's a really intense emotion, or I'm really anxious, or I'm really whatever it is. And we can learn to watch it. We watch it rise and fall. In the mystery school, I teach you how to visualize it as an object so that you can just watch it and create a bubble of space between you and it, right? There are lots of techniques to help us just observe our feelings, observe our thoughts, observe these parts of ourselves. Then we can start to move into compassion for these parts. So rather than listening to them and being like, yep, my inner critic is right and I have to change all these things about myself, or yep, this fear is absolutely true and I have to go run and do all these things, I have to fix myself, I have to get rid of my coping mechanisms, blah, blah, blah. We can just start to be like, okay, that inner child, inner critic is just trying to keep me safe. I'm so sorry that you feel so unsafe right now. Compassion. We have compassion for our emotions, right? My emotion is just trying to tell me something right now. It's not trying to hurt me. It's not trying to harm me. And it's not trying to tell me that I'm a piece of shit. My emotion is happening for a reason. And it's trying to help me. My inner critic is just trying to help me. And then being able to have compassion for ourselves when we are in our coping mechanisms, when we're sabotaging ourselves, when we're numbing ourselves, when we're doing the things that we usually do that we think we need to fix about ourselves. Instead of automatically jumping to, oh, what's wrong with me that I'm binging again, or that I'm, doing whatever it is that we think is the thing that's wrong with us. We can say, okay, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm feeling something I don't know how to feel. I'm going through something I don't know how to fix. There's pain, there's fear, something is happening. And this is how, right now, I'm supporting myself. And so we say to ourselves, I'm doing the best that I can. I'm not broken. I'm not shameful. I'm not just hurting myself for no reason. I'm trying to help myself. Okay, so we build that witness self first, that can witness the thoughts, witness our feelings, witness our actions, witness our patterns. And then we start to develop the compassionate witness. The witness that can say, you're doing this for a reason. I see you. It's okay. I'm not going to abandon you. Right? And that's the turnaround. That's where the real magic starts to happen. Because again, remember, when we're in pain, when we're scared, when we're feeling like we're being abandoned, that inner child kicks in and says, I'm alone, I'm never going to be okay, everything is the worst. Or we start inner critiquing. This is what's wrong with me, I'm never going to fix it, this has always been how it is, I'm broken, I've always been socially awkward. I'm never going to have friends. I've always been fat and I'm never going to be loved. I've always been stupid and no one's ever going to love me. I have people-pleasing tendencies and that's shitty about me. I'm doing these bad things. That kicks on. And that's fear. That's shame. That's what that is. And that's your inner child trying to deal with what you're actually feeling. You see what I'm saying here? All of that stuff is a response to something. It's a response to feeling like we're not being loved, we're not being held, we're not going to be okay. And most of us don't see that. We don't see that what sparked us was a feeling of being abandoned or not being safe or not being loved or having pain we didn't know how to deal with. We just see the inner critic, or we just see that inner abandonment and I'm helpless, and then we try to fix that. But that's the response. That's not what's actually wrong. That's not what's actually happening. So when we can shift out of that fear mode and into self-compassion, we are starting to receive the love, the acceptance, the kindness that automatically triggers our nervous system into feeling safe. Because remember what we talked about at the beginning of this video. The thing that makes us feel unsafe is that we are going to be alone. We are going to be abandoned. We're going to be rejected. We're going to be shamed. So literally, when we feel scared, when we're in pain, when something's happening that we don't understand, the inner critic comes in to say, fix yourself, change yourself, figure it out now, look for the thing that's wrong with you. Because that's what it knows to do, to try to fix you so that you will be loved by the outside world and then you will be safe. But unfortunately, as adults, that is not the answer to our problem. Because usually that's not really what's happening. What we need in those moments is to feel like we're not being abandoned. Right? When we're experiencing a big emotion we don't know how to feel, the thing we need is, I'm not going to abandon you when you're feeling this way. When we're in pain and we don't know why, we need to feel, I'm not going to abandon you when you're in this pain. When we're scared and feeling rejected and feeling abandoned, we need to hear, this isn't your fault and I'm not going to abandon you. So that we don't keep triggering ourselves deeper into that state of fear, which takes us down the whole rabbit hole of self-help and self-fixing and this is what's wrong with me and I gotta fix it and catastrophizing and all the things. When we can come into a state of compassion, we make ourselves feel like we're not going to be abandoned. And that's what opens up our awareness. That's why compassion is the foundation for this entire thing. When we can learn to be kind to ourselves, when we are in pain, when we are freaking out, when our inner critic is all running the show, we literally shift our nervous systems out of a state of fear, which tells us to just do what we've always done, attack ourselves, shame ourselves, blame ourselves, into a state of, okay, no, what's actually happening here? It shifts us into a state where we can actually start to think logically, where we can actually start to question our thoughts, where we can start to see reality more in alignment for how it actually is. And then we get curious. What am I actually feeling? What am I wanting that I'm not getting? What am I needing that I don't know how to get? What's hurting me that I don't know how to fix? Where am I feeling abandoned? Where am I in need of love or support that I don't know how to ask for? Where am I scared? Where am I lonely? Where am I being triggered into a flashback of my past? That's when we can step into curiosity. And then we can start to figure out why we're actually doing what we're doing, why we're feeling how we're feeling, and what we need to be supported. That's what becoming your own safe place is. I'm witnessing myself. I have compassion for myself. And then instead of trying to fix myself, I get curious about what I'm actually feeling, what I'm actually wanting, what I'm actually needing. Okay, this is why I say shame, blame, and guilt are always lies. Shame, blame, and guilt are always lies. Because they are based on this idea that if I perfect myself to be what my caregivers wanted me to be, what I perceived my caregivers wanted me to be, I can fix everything in my life. Shame says the reason you're doing your coping mechanisms and your numbing and your self-sabotage is because you're broken. Instead of, you're hurting, you're feeling something you don't know how to process. This is how you get your needs met in the only way you know how to get them met. You're trying your best. Shame says, I'm broken that I keep doing this bad thing. Reality says, I'm doing this for a good reason. This is what I learned in my nervous system, is how I need to be and what I need to do to keep myself safe. And if we are going to change anything that is objectively unhealthy, we are first going to have to figure out why we're doing it and what it's doing for us. If we're going to learn how to process our emotions, we need to learn how to be our own safe place first. If we're going to process our trauma, we need to learn how to be on our own side and start to see that we didn't fuck up our lives. And all those horrible things that everyone told us about ourselves aren't true. To be able to question our thoughts and question our perceptions, we need to have this foundation of I'm going to be on my own side. And literally, I was just talking to someone in my mystery school about this right now. A lot of the time, before we're going to even be ready for solutions, before we're going to be ready to step into what do I need to do about this, we need to be validated first. So many of us have never learned how to say, okay, I'm just sad and it's okay. It makes sense that I'm sad and I'm allowed to be sad. Or I'm angry. Or I'm scared. Or I hate this. I don't want this. Or I really do want this. Or I need this to change. We've never learned how to just validate that we feel how we feel and we think what we think and we're upset about the things that we've been through. And we need to go through that. That's, again, a huge part of the coaching work that I do, is just validating people for the first time so that they can stop feeling like they are fucking up and turning their anger and their sadness and their grief and their wanting the external world to change in on themselves, right? When you are angry with yourself over and over and over again, when you are blaming and shaming yourself, when you feel like you're undeserving of rest, when you feel like you're not allowed to do all this, you never learned how to be mad at your caregivers for not letting you rest. You never learned how to say, no, I don't want that. You never learned how to see that there could be things wrong in your environment that aren't to do with you. And you need to be validated in your feelings first. And then we'll find solutions. Most of us are trying to skip the validation phase. The just being upset at our caregivers phase. The just being upset about what happened to us phase. The victim phase, as they say. And we're trying to rush to solutions and we're just not ready. And that's what being our own safe place is all about. Okay, so hopefully this gave you some where to start, some things to try. And if none of this works for you, I have a million other videos. Go check them out. There's lots of other videos and something will click. Or work with a therapist, work with a coach, come try the mystery school, read Martha Beck. There are lots and lots and lots of different ways. Okay, there's no one way. No one has it figured out. We all need different things, and that's okay. But learning to become your own safe place is how you figure out what you need. And that's how we change. We don't change by trying to fix ourselves, because there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You have needs that aren't being met. You have feelings you don't know how to express. You have traumas you gotta process. We have conditioning we need to unpack and get rid of and shift to real reality. And being on your own side is how you're going to be able to see all of that, because it shifts you out of that fear state that just tells you that you're broken and wrong and bad and you need to fix yourself, and into higher awareness where you can start to get these answers. That's why it's so important. So learning to develop the witness, developing the compassionate witness, developing the curious witness. What do I need? That's how we get on our own side. Okay? So I hope this was helpful. I hope this was supportive. If you have any questions, comments, I will post this right after I'm done here. You can leave them in the comments. I always love to hear from you. And until I see you again, have a great day, week, month, year, whenever. So grateful for your insight. Thank you for this talk and all of them. Happy New Year to you. Yes, you too. Happy New Year. Whenever you're watching this. Happy new month. Happy new day. All right. Thank you again for being here. And I will see you later.